I make it as 10 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Joint Waste Disposal Board meeting of today, Thursday, the 18th of September, 2025. The public portion of the meeting is now being recorded, and I'd like to ask for any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I've had apologies from Councillor Alder.
Thank you. No other apologies then. Okay, very good. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members?
No.
No? Okay, very good. Number 3, minutes of the meeting of the last Joint Waste Disposal Board, which will be found on your pages 5 to 8. Did anyone have any issues with those, or are those good for me to sign off?
Agreed.
Agreed. Very good. Thank you for that. Any urgent items of business?
No, Chair, no notified.
Thank you. Okay, very good. And so at that point, we move on to the RE3 progress report. And for that, we turn over to our officer, Sarah Ennis. Please, Sarah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, as usual, I was just going to quickly talk through the parts of the report that have recommendations attached to them. So the first part is the DIY charging. So you will recall that we presented a review of charges in place at some other local authorities back in February, and you asked at that point that we produce a proposal for RE3. So that came to the board in June and was approved at that time. But we also proposed to refine the structure with our contractor, and you requested that we take certain factors into account during that review and present the final version of the structure at this meeting. So you will now find that attached in Appendix 1 of the report. Subject to members being happy to endorse that final version, our plan is to implement it at the recycling centres from the 1st of December. So that will give us a bit of time to set things up and to give publics the heads up of the changes coming. And then we can monitor what comes in. So obviously we would expect that because the government mandated free allowance will continue to apply, that for most people with low level DIY waste, that will be sufficient to cover that. But the aim of the scheme is that if people are generating larger amounts of DIY waste, that it will be them who cover more of the cost of handling and disposing of the waste rather than the council taxpayer in general. And the other recommendations in this report relate to banning certain individuals from the recycling centres. So you will recall that at the last meeting we spoke about an incident of physical abuse towards a member of staff at one of the sites. Following a more recent additional event, we have sought some legal advice from Reading Borough Council's legal team about if and how exactly we could implement a ban, and we currently await that. So the recommendation in the report is that once we receive that guidance from the legal teams, that members agree for us to implement it with immediate effect in these cases of any physical abuse against staff. And then thereafter, we propose to bring a further report to the next meeting, setting out any other circumstances in which we might want to consider a ban at the sites. So, for example, that might include things like verbal abuse towards staff, or cases in which traders illegally deposit their waste at their sites. And I think that was all I was going to cover, so I'm happy to hand back for any comments or questions.
Right, thank you for that report, Sarah. Can I look to members for any comments, or indeed officers for any comments on this? Councillor Temperton.
Can I just agree really, 6.7, I think we really do need to publicise that this is costs those who deposit it, and it's publicity, it's not for profit, that it just covers the costs of doing this. Because I think we just say it's not, I think that's a really good message to get over, that it's actually, you cover the cost of doing all this. It's not just to make profit. And I think we do need to emphasize that when we put out publicity. And then the other thing, I've got little bits
Okay.
here. I think it's really good that the households deposit their 4-week allowance in one go, if that's possible. I think that would help, because people keep trotting backwards and forwards is not so great for the environment either. So if they can do it all in one trot. And then it says in term would this is 6.15, direct RE3 residents to a doorstep collection option for reusable items. Have we got any information on what sort of things that would be, what that will cover, please? And my last one is 6.22, when we have, will there be audio body cams as well? So when they have, if they have body cams on for the safeguarding, will it have audio information on it as well? So, because I think that helps when there's evidence in court cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, have you made a note of those to come back on? And can I look to members for any other comments, officers, any other comments or concerns? Okay. I would just add another question, Sarah, if I could, on my behalf, just in regards to, or actually several comments, just in regards to the list of items and consideration around that list being possibly evolving in the future. I don't know if other members noticed that we have no rugs or carpets on there, yet that's something that I see commonly, certainly I know in my own area. So I think that's something that we might want to keep under review. So Sarah, I just wanted to know if that was possible. Also, I would like to add, as we promote this to the public, excuse me, that we're very clear kind of in practical terms about what 100 liters really means. I have that in my mind's eye, but I think it really helps. I don't think people grasp 100 liters. So if we could kind of liken that to some kind of practical size. I know that originally there was talk about what would fill the boot of a car or something like that, but just in a little more practical terms, so people really understand what's happening. And then obviously promoting that, yes, indeed, that certain amount is for free, and this is just the handling, as Councillor Temperton pointed to. So those are my comments and questions. So if you could come back, Sarah.
Yes, thank you for those. So in regards to the communication bits, I'm sure Monica will pick this up a little bit again in the communication report. But yes, we can certainly highlight to residents that this is a not-for-profit scheme. And in regards to 100 litres, yes, I think in the website we already do some examples of what 100 litres might look like. For example, putting it into centimetres if it happened to be a cube size shape. But yes, we can certainly look into publicising that a bit more. In regards to the 4 visits in one go, yes, we will definitely look at that. We will just need to work with our booking system provider in order to make some tweaks to the system in order to enable that. The evolving list, yes, we can certainly keep the list of DIY charges under review. Carpets isn't an item that other councils currently charge for because their legal advice has been that this is something that some people might take with them when they move house, and therefore it would be considered a household waste rather than a non-household waste. But we can certainly seek our own legal advice and consider what we want to do on regards to that one. And then moving on to the sort of zero tolerance part of the report. Yes, the contractor is looking to add audio to the CCTV system. They are just checking the data protection implications of that, really. So yes, I'm sure once they get a conclusion, they will add that if they are able to. And I hope that covered everything.
Thank you, Sarah. I do believe that did, but I've got an additional question from Councillor Purnell, it looks like. Go ahead.
That one. Is it that one? Yeah. Absolutely agree that residents should be banned from our recycling sites if they are violent. No one should go to work and be faced with that. What do the other authorities that do issue these temporary bans, do they say that they are effective, an effective way of stopping people acting in this manner?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, from what I understand, I think they are implemented quite infrequently. What we need to find out from our legal team is what we would do, I suppose, in the event that someone didn't comply with a ban once it was implemented, and what we would do in these cases.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? I see there being none. I'd like to thank Sarah for the report. I think these are some really good things that we've been looking forward to, and I appreciate the work. I'm certainly appreciate the protection of our staff in terms of just absolutely unacceptable behavior. Agreeing with Councillor Purnell that no one should have to face that in a work environment, certainly in these kind of facilities. So can I ask that members note the contents of this report and with items 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 agree to instruct officers to implement the proposed charging structure, that you bring a report to the next meeting on options to ban users, and that members agree for the temporary bans to be issued upon receipt of legal advice. Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item we'll move on to is item 6, which is the communications report. And for that, we will go over to Officer Monica Bulmers. So go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to bring to attention highlights from each of the points of the communication report, starting from our latest reused project, Reware. Members should recall we launched that in July in partnership with a local charity, First Days. As a part of it, donation points has been set at the both recycling centres. They will be there all year round. The initiative had a really good reception by public, strong local press and social media engagement as well. And first collection has already been happening, so it's going very well. And next point is our behavioural change communication campaign. We are still on track to launch the campaign in autumn with the aim of increasing food waste recycling and shifting the volume of the residual waste. We have secured all of the suppliers, and production of assets is underway, and we are going to look to target all households in Reading and some targeted areas in Wokingham based on the data and the food waste capturing at the moment. The campaign will include bin stickers, sample-free liners, some digital promotions as well, and it's all within the guidance provided by RAP and a good practice that has been already done elsewhere. And the next point is our new widget on our website, ReChatBot, that we do believe it's going quite well. Again, we launched it in July. We had over 7,700 chats so far, so it is seems to be a helping, hopefully, and especially, obviously, we're looking to any help outside of the office hours, where residents would require immediate help or have some inquiries related to recycling and booking waste acceptance policies. In the previous report, Sarah touched already on the DIY charges, but in my report, I slightly highlighted a little bit more how we're going to communicate that to residents, given we have a bit of the time of the implementation on the 1st of December as a suggested date. We do hope that we'll be able to take all of that feedback we heard today as well and provide a clear information and guidance to residents. There is a plans to use quite a few channels that we already been using with similar information like that. People will see the information throughout the booking process as well. All of the signage will be updated. And obviously, we will use our social media and newsletter as well to inform about all of the changes. And I take aboard all of the feedback in terms of like giving the practical examples and highlight what the changes is going to be happening. The next quick point is just to note that the conference in Reading, National Civic Amenity Site Conference, has happened in July, and RE3 co-hosted it. It went incredibly well. The event featured the welcome speech by RE3 chair. We had 2 tours from waste officers from across the country visiting our site and looking at how we have set up our Reading Recycling Centre, which were all very impressed. A quick word on our annual environmental report, very important document that we publishing each year. Again, strong results in terms of customer satisfaction, landfill diversion, and quite a big focus on showing our range of our reuse schemes. So we are going to publicize it from now on to the public. And the last bit on my update is the information on the Recycle Week. Again, is an annual event on this occasion happening next week. We will be following RAP campaign, Rescue Me, and that will be supported as well with some engagement activities that we're planning at our sites. We have free public tours, which are now fully booked, but also we are offering an online session where we come to connect with residents through obviously sessions on the questions and answers as we always do, but provides as well a virtual tour of our MRF. So hopefully that will be well attended and everyone's welcome. Thank you so much, and I'm inviting questions.
Thank you, Monica, for that. And members will note that all we are charged with is noting the contents of this report, but I do look for any particular comments. Yes, Councillor Harding.
Thanks, Monica. Just one question regarding the chatbot. Have you noticed any change in contacts to the admin office as a result of implementing the chatbot? I mean, great if more information is getting out, but curious if that's reduced the sort of pull on staff time. And then the only other question or comment really I had around the annual environmental report references all the changes, national policy changes such as simpler recycling, and just in terms of as we're all going through the process of working out how we implement this in each council area, that any communications are very sensitive to the fact that we may be in different points at different times, and we ensure that there's not confusion for residents by kind of trying to understandably get out the simpler message. Thank you.
Yes, are there any other questions? Or yes, Councillor Purnell, can you continue to take notes, Monica? And then, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. In the behavioural change communications campaign, it doesn't mention if Bracknell is involved in that. Could you confirm what will be taking place in the Bracknell area, please? Bracknell Forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No, back over to you then, Monica.
That's me.
Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor
Yeah,
Templeton.
I've got some. On the school uniform thing, I think it's really, really good. Are residents able to look through it themselves, or does it all go to First Steps? And the second thing that isn't mentioned here is the books and the recycling the libraries. And I would say that in Bracknell, on our summer fun days, which are free, the RE3 gave us, I think, 10 boxes of books, and it was really successful at 2 different days. And we had them, and children, we were giving those to children, children's books. It was really, really positive. And as a result, we're now working to put those in the Bracknell Town Council offices in town, and a table for children to have books so they can just come in and take them. And it was really, really positive. So that's really fantastic. So thank you very much. The other thing about the RE3 chat box, have we got numbers for each council? Because then we might be able to publicise this more if we found that we were the council that's not doing so well. And my last one, and then we've mentioned in the past one, I should have brought this up now, of what 100 litres looks like. But often it talks about 25 litres of everything. And it might be good to get an idea of what 25 litres of bricks actually looks like, rather than just the 100. And then my last thing was I found a little gadget here. It's really good. And then, that was it. They're my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. Monica, I think over to you. Hopefully you've been able to make some notes there.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of the questions. I will follow up with RE3 admin. I'm not sure to what extent they're tracking incoming inquiries, but hopefully they will be able to provide some updates on that. It's not our initial aim to reduce that level of engagement, that people could get it through the telephone as well. However, I will make sure that we will come back on that point. In terms of the tracking, where the queries are come from, we won't be able to know it, but if we review the questions and they related to Bracknell, that's the only way we could be able to see. And that was our plan as well, to kind of, once it's operating for a number of months, we will be able to review what sort of the topics are the key ones where we can need to seek improvement in our website or respective council website. But thank you so much for that point, and we will make sure that it's feedback to respective councils if any informations are potentially missing. On the books, absolutely. We already made in a few contacts with Bracknell Town Council to follow up on that successful events that happened, and we are going to support that, setting up that book library. All has been already being arranged. How frequent, what sort of volume of the books they will be able to take it. So we are fully grateful for all of that help that it's been given, and really appreciated to hearing that feedback. It was really good, and we definitely noted it, and we had a conversation already happening within Bracknell Town Council on that. School uniforms and Thursdays. No, we do not planning enabling residents visiting the site to also browse through the bins. So that's not part of that. They are being straight provided to the Thursdays, and they are the one who then vetting the good quality and ensuring they are suitable for their reuse. If something is not suitable for reuse, they are welcome to bring it back at our site or using the other disposal route. But we do not envisage displaying it for residents to be able to do it at the site at the moment. In terms of the campaign, given where Bracknell is with the glass curbside recycling, it has been agreed that there will be a lot of communications going on that topic. However, any shared assets that is going to be produced will be provided to Bracknell for their use as well, and the multimedia campaign has been proposed as well that it could have happening at the same time to be associated with any free activities that can be done on the social media. So once the assets are provided and in a shape that Bracknell could then see them and decide whether we would like to use them, absolutely, that's the whole idea, to get the bigger reach for that campaign.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. That's something that certainly we would most definitely like to be involved in going forward.
Super, thank you. That's really good.
Great, thank you for that. I mean, just for myself, I'm really pleased with the communications because this is where RE3 really shows our strength in reduce, reuse, recycle, and getting all of these different activities, different initiatives going is just really, really important. I myself am a chatbot convert. I'm not a chatbot fan, but I did use our chatbot site and I did find it to be quite helpful. So thumbs up on that. I was a late convert. I think I'm probably that age and stage where I'm like, no, I'm chatbot adverse, but it was really, really helpful. And so thank you very much. For that report, Monica, and can I ask that members note the contents of this report, section 3.1? Thank you very much. Great, good. We'll move on to item 7 then, which is the flexible plastics report. And for that, I turn to, I believe, Officer Sarah Innes. So thank you for that. Sarah, please.
Yes, thank you. So as members will be aware, Flex Collect have been seeking to understand various factors associated with the processing and collection of plastic films ahead of simpler recycling guidance requiring curbside collection of this material from March 2027. So the Flex Collect Consortium have now published their final report from the trials that they have been undertaking. And their conclusions paint quite a positive picture in relation to this material. And we've highlighted the key sort of findings within the report. For us having taken part in the trials, we've got the added benefit of having had some real operational insights from running this. And we've highlighted some of those bits also within the report. At the moment, we are part of quite a small group of councils who collect this material from the curbside. But if we want to continue to sort of stay ahead of other councils, we now obviously need to start to think about what we do next. So our funding from Flex Collect will come to an end in March 2026. And yes, so we've proposed in our report that members agree for the trial to continue, well, not the trial, the service to continue to the areas currently covered by the trial for a further year. So that just follows a successful trial and would save us needing to remove the service to these residents and then potentially have to put it back in a year or so later. So in terms of future funding, EPR payments should at least cover some of the cost of both collecting and disposing of this material. And we await information from government, which will probably come at the end of October as to exactly what our funding for next year would look like. The Flex Collect report itself doesn't appear to indicate that there is any reason for the government to delay simpler recycling. So we also need to start to prepare for what we're going to do in 2027. And in that respect, we have proposed in the report that members agree expenditure of £21,000 for some technical drawings of the MRF that our contractor FCC can then use to cost some amendments to the facility that we would need in order to process much larger quantities of bags filled with these flexible films. In regards to the bags themselves, they are thought to probably provide us with the most flexibility. So particularly given ETS uncertainty from 2028 and noting potential opportunities to look at how we might do things differently when our current PFI contract ends. Yes, happy to hand over for discussion.
Thank you for that report, Sarah. It's very thorough and very well laid out report, very clear as to what is going on here and where we need to go. So I look to members for comments. Go ahead, Councillor Temperton.
I think it's good that we try the thinner bags because the thing. But also in Bracknell, we did a 10,000, I think, Greg. But there are other people in other areas who are really wanting to take that up. I'm not suggesting we do it all over the place, but is there the uptake from those we are doing, to me, is a bit disappointing when they say that we haven't got room to put it in, or we haven't got room in our kitchen or whatever. So we've given it to these 10,000. And yet some of them don't really want it, but we continue with that. But there are a lot of other people who talk to me who aren't on this that would like it. So is there any way we could have a collect your own bags from somewhere else, so we don't just deliver, but if they really want to do it, would they be able to go to a library or the council offices or somewhere and collect a pile of the bags and just put them in their bin and do it? Because some of them are taking them to the supermarkets and they're taking them there, but we will want them to do it for us. If we're going to do this in the future, we want to get them in the habit that this is going to do, and they really are keen to do this. And so I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton. Over to Councillor Terry.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I hadn't really got my head around this report, and I'm still not sure I've got my head around the report. I think on the one hand, there's the carry on, and I get that, you know, and for the cost of doing it seems fine. But the rest of the report on the emissions trading scheme does sort of make me go, ooh, could be some real challenges and risks in here. And I think it does say that, but I think maybe it's worth saying it out loud again, that there's, carry on with the trial we've got, and that makes a lot of sense. But there's some unknowns at the moment. And I just want to say out loud to officers that I think I've heard you. It says we can't afford clearly to invest 5 million in the recycling centres, because that doesn't make sense in the context of where we are around the contract renewal, and probably not in any case. It would take a long time in terms of the cost and recovery for that investment for this particular bit. But it feels like there's still we've made some really good steps forwards on simpler recycling, but inside here, this leaves us with some sort of challenges about what will happen to energy for waste, and where we not to be able to collect enough, it could cause us some significant problems. So I'm very happy to support the recommendations, but I think it's made, for me, given that I'd accept I probably have just read it once, and I'll probably need to read it 2 times to really get it all in my head properly, that we just keep this under review and are thoughtful about the impact it may have when we look at our financial situation later on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Terry, and over to Councillor Harding.
Thank you. And I guess worth noting that Wokingham isn't currently part of the trial, so continuing with the trial is not really going to have a huge impact on us. But I think I want to thank officers for it's a very interesting report, and particularly note that, so one of my takeaways, I think, as Councillor Terry was alluding to, was flexibility is going to be key here. There are so many uncertainties around ETS, how the prices will be passed back to us. As a group, I don't believe they will carry on to produce as much as they might like to say it will. And also, in terms of, we don't know what the uptake is going to be. So I very much endorse the recommendation to look at these designs, as this sounds like a potential solution that has, pun intended, flexibility designed into it. You know, we're going to have to react to changing circumstances, be that EPR funding, more knowledge on the ETS, uptake from residents as things go along. So that feels like a very prudent way forward. And sorry, just one other comment. I know in 6.14, there's comments around the markets for these plastics. So I think firstly, very much share many of the principles that this board has had in the past around ensuring that our waste streams are going to responsible processes, and that's absolutely critical. I don't think any of us want to be in the situation of, pushing residents to do something, we have great participation from residents, and we need to be confident that this is actually doing the right thing. And that's another thing where we need to adapt to those markets going forwards. I do note that 6.14 states that we could explore options for a contract to secure recycling capacity. I'd certainly like to hear more about that in a future meeting, as we anticipate many more councils collecting this come spring 2027, and it would certainly be a shame to miss our current early expertise to try and secure some recycling capacity at an advantage cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding, for that. Are there, yes, Councillor Templeton?
Yeah, just 6.13. There's a real warning note in here that we don't know what we're going to do with this stuff when we've collected it. And this is a government issue as well as ours, but they can say collect. But there's some real issues in here that they don't know what to do with it. It can only be recycled so many times, and then it comes down again. I mean, you know, we can collect, but let's be a warning. Maybe we should ask the government to put some pressure on them finding, or what is the research going on to make this worthwhile and carrying on, because we can't just keep collecting and then we find, oh, well, we've got to send it to Turkey because we haven't got anywhere else to do it, whatever else to do with it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Templeton. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a practical point around the capital approval process. If there are amendments required for the MRF as a result of these investigations that the contractor is doing, then the capital approval process will not give us that capital until the 1st of April 2027, which is when the legislation starts. So certainly in Bracknell, we would need to do a supplementary capital approval through Cabinet and through Council as part of that process. And I'm not sure how that applies to the other authorities, but it's just something to point out from a practical point of view.
Certainly, thank you for that. Are there any other comments? No. Okay. Sarah, back to you. There's a number of good questions there. Obviously, this is a very hot topic. And yes, thank you.
Yes, thanks. So yes, points all noted. I think the main question that I picked up was Councillor Templeton's point about could we allow residents to collect bags and take part in the trial of the service? So yes, I mean, collection of bags from 2027 is definitely something we can explore. I don't think it would work for next year from 2026, just because at the moment the way the MRF is working is based on the level of engagement we've got with this currently. If we allowed residents to all pick up bags and recycle their films, we could be inundated with films and not currently have the capacity within the facility to extract it all. So I don't think we're quite ready to open this out to everyone quite yet. But happy for anyone to jump in if they've got more to add.
Organic. Yeah, apologies.
Yes, Oliver.
I completely agree with what Sarah's saying. I think it would be difficult. And I think it goes to the point that everyone's making, which is that balance between revenue costs and the risks that we face, as Councillor Terry has pointed out, from lower levels of capture of what is called in the ETS fossil material, hydrocarbons, plastics, those sorts of things. But I completely agree with what Sarah's saying, really, around the way that the trial is set up now would not lend itself to that kind of organic growth at the moment, because it may add to the costs that Bracknell's got. So I think neither of us, I think, is saying no, we definitely can't do it. I think it would need a little bit more work and perhaps some consideration within Bracknell as well as to whether or not those potential extra costs might be something you wanted to follow. But I suppose that's also a conversation we would need to have with the contractor, isn't it? So should we take that away? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Oliver. I mean, yes, obviously this is a situation that we'll have to keep under review. And I believe that the drawings really and that work is a wise way to go. Just perhaps any guidance from you as to when that could come back in any kind of meaningful fashion for members to consider too, Sarah, I don't know if you have any idea on that.
Yes, so the contractor anticipates that the work could be done fairly quickly, and they think would probably get a report back around December time. And our plan would be to share that information with members as soon as possible to give as much time to consider it as we're able to. And yes, formally, I suppose it would come back at the next meeting in January, February time.
Thank you for that. That's really encouraging because I think it's something that we obviously need to move on at speed. So if there are no other comments, can I ask that members refer to the recommendations, that you note the contents of the report, that you approve the continuation of the flexible plastic service to the trial areas as described at 6.20, and that we proceed to approve the contractor's cost of 21K for technical drawings around the MRF. And as Officer Ennis has pointed out, hopefully receive that back at the very next meeting here for consideration. Are we agreed, members? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thank you again, Sarah, for your report. At that, we will be moving on to item 8, and this is the Joint Waste Disposal Board reports, information and internal governance report. And for that, I turn over to Oliver Burt. Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. As everyone, I'll just nip through the sort of headlines. Everyone will be aware that there's a lot of data in waste. We weigh everything in and out, principally, and there are a lot of individual transactions and a lot of analysis of composition and all the stuff that you're familiar with. So we're proposing, on the back of some work that we've been doing here with colleagues in the data team, we're proposing to make available to the public some data sets. Those ones that we've identified at the moment are around bottle bank usage. I think that needs a little bit of tidying up, but it's interesting and it provides a spatial indication to people of where bottle banks are and how they're used. Also, in a spatial sense, the booking information, that's quite interesting to people, but it's also got dual use because it's something that we can use. We've previously at this board talked about accessibility to the HWRCs, whether we're reaching the right people who perhaps can't get there so easily, and this information will help us to identify those areas. And then there's also information that we've given an example of around contamination, which is something that we all know is a key risk. It is a distinct partnership between the councils and the partnership. It is residents' waste, and using that information we can probably help to identify the types of contamination, and from that messaging either that the public want or that we feel is pertinent. So that's that first item. The report then goes on to talk about the prior timetable before reports get to this board. And there's an example given, and really, without going into the specific details of all of that stuff, happy to take questions, of course. But what the recommendation is saying is that the three councils should work together really to produce a timetable for reports which each council can work with, that ticks the box which says we want to make sure there's due governance, but also ticks the box which says that the information isn't sort of, this is a bit of a dramatic way of describing it, but isn't stale by the time it reaches you as a board. So that's that item. And then finally, and linked to that, the report proposes that members consider whether or not to hold the agenda setting meeting at the end of each meeting for the next meeting, if that at all makes any sense. I think you kind of get what I'm saying. And so that's the other recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Oliver, and I look to members, officers for comments. Yes, Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Chair. On the first point about publishing key sources of information, of data, I think we want to be as open and transparent as possible. I don't think it can do any harm whatsoever in highlighting, for example, as you said, the contamination areas. You know, it can only do good to get the message out there that these errors are being made.
Councillor Harding.
Yeah, also very supportive of sharing data. At the end of the day, it's the residents who are providing the input to this whole system. So the more information they have, I'd like to think the more correct choices will be made. So, and then the only other comment I was going to make around the internal governance, obviously happy to work with colleagues across councils on that. I think from our perspective, yeah, there's certainly some reports that will be far more critical than others, particularly around anything with major budget implications and the new contractors examples, but I wouldn't be expecting to take the vast majority of the reports that we receive at the board through all of the internal committees and meetings at Wokingham. So obviously public colleagues, staff are always welcome to contact the team throughout the process. But I think we do need to strike a balance there between, as you say, Oliver, getting things having to be ready so early that they're then out of date and we're struggling to make sort of significant progress at these board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Terry.
So on the first point, I absolutely agree. You know, releasing information and data, part of the communication strategy is really important. I would just say the example on page 42 of the breakdown of sampling by month, year and category, which shows the non-recyclable target and now you've told me it's the bring banks, it sort of makes more sense. Because actually visually it just goes, it's not really much of a problem. What are you going on about, you know? And I think that's just a sort of human condition that they could see that and not think it's such a bad thing, because it's a good example, because we know we get kind of good work going on there. So I'm just being a bit picky. I think it's just maybe alongside something like that, there could be a sort of, for example, this, you know, every ton of stuff that isn't recycled costs us X. I just think that sometimes with the visuals, you've got to kind of get people to understand contamination isn't just about, well, it is about putting the right thing in the right bin, but it's about the cost of not doing it. I'd only say that. So it's not published, it's just context is important. I think on the second point, I wasn't really sure. I guess what's happened is there's been perhaps some recent more activity about us needing to have some reports to go to some places that we might not ordinarily apply. It has occurred to me a few times that the minutes sort of are published, but we don't necessarily take them back in our organisation consistently. So we could have a chat about it, but things like maybe the minutes could go somewhere. They probably don't, you know, for information, so that people know what we've been talking about. It's an easier thing to do, you know, you stick them on your environment committee or whatever it is you have, or when you have your cabinet things, because we all do things slightly differently. Anyway, I'm not trying to solve the problem in the meeting. I think that the other issue though is that maybe it's incumbent to ask council officers to just be really clear when there are key decisions. So key decisions for us are the ones that have got a big impact financially and or maybe, you know, in other resources that are coming along. So just like any forward plan, and it may be that we could just understand we're going to get a big decision point coming up. Because it's a big key decision, we might need to have some versions where we talk to colleagues about it first. I'll just leave you with that thought.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton, you have your mic on.
Yeah.
Is that because you've got a question?
I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
comment with Claire's help. I wrote an article for our local magazine on we are wasting £1 million a year in Bracknell Forest on contamination from recycling, and it was distributed to all the houses on my ward. And for the first time ever, I've had about 7 phone calls about waste. And that's quite interesting. I've had emails as well, but people have picked it up and said, what can we do about this? So I really think we have to relate it to the money in their pocket and what we could do with that money if we didn't actually waste it on contamination. It really worked. I'm quite surprised. I mean, they don't normally have phone calls about waste, but we did, and it was so it was good. So I think we just continue, but you do have to hit the pocket, because that has made a difference, I think.
Thank you for that point, and rah on that one. I thoroughly agree that every taxpayer needs to understand collectively their responsibilities to saving the money that they're entrusting councils with. And I think that by giving them this information, by having and ensuring that this information is out there, there will be people certainly that will gravitate towards that and become very interested in it. I think we'll probably be able to get a little bit more energy behind that in public discussion. So that's certainly commendable. There being no other comments from members, I would like to actually go back to the recommendations. Let me just think that I had, yes, if I could just touch briefly as to whether I get a steer from members about the agenda setting meeting. I'm sorry, I did want to say that before we move to recommendations, as to whether we want to have the agenda setting meeting directly after this meeting, or probably in an area like we normally do after 2 weeks or so. Can I just go to members for comments? Yes, Councillor Harding.
So I'd support incorporating an item in this agenda that might capture future items, as has happened today already from our discussion. However, I'm not sure that really, so as I understand it, the intent would be that replaces the current agenda setting meeting, which I find actually quite useful. I've been to fewer of them than some of my colleagues, so welcome your inputs. But I'd personally support a brief item to capture anything that comes out of the meeting, but I don't think that would be usefully replacing what currently happens.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. I'm inclined to agree with you on that. I think that by the end of this meeting, I'm conscious of members' times, officers' time. It's a kind of long meeting. It takes a glut out of everyone's day. And it does. Obviously, we're conducting important business, but we've got other important business to deal with too. So, and I also find it very useful to come back within the span of a couple of weeks after it kind of settles down. And in our heads, we come to really realize those actions. And then at kind of around 2 weeks afterwards, we can all refocus and redirect. And I find that very useful, as you intimated. And so I would propose probably that the current structure rather remain in place on that, unless there's, yeah. I'm getting nods from colleagues on that. So very good. So now I do believe we're safe to go to the recommendations. That's items 3.1, noting the contents of the report, 3.2, about the publishing of key sources of information, which we got good resounding support for. 3.3, that members request respective councils liaison work together to ensure that data is up to date and timely. And 3.4, that we have an agenda setting item as set out in our conversation here. So our members agreed with that. Great.
Sorry.
Yes.
I
Sorry,
thought
Councillor Harding.
3.4 doesn't agree with what you just said, Councillor Rowlands. So
You guys are
Yes, right. Correction. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for calling me out on that. Yes. So we will actually be looking to, I guess, amend that recommendation to continue with the current situation. Yes, I did say as we just discussed, but there we go. So let's set it out. And I think at that point we're agreed on those. Great. Thank you, members. And so at that, we conclude the public portion of the meeting. So Lizzie, if you could just inform me that we're ending that. And right, I do need to just make that announcement. The exclusion of public and press, that pursuant to Regulation 4 of the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Access to Information Regulations 2012, and having regard to the public interest, members of the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the consideration of items 10, 11, and 12, which involves the likely disclosure of exempt information under the following categories of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. That's being information relating to financial or business affairs, and that no representation's been received in response to the notice under Regulation 5 of the Local Authorities Regulations 2012. And our members agreed to go into private session.
Agreed.
Resoundingly agreed. Thank you. So Lizzie, thank you for that.